Greatest hits albums are a great way to get to know an artist, and the Beatles have produced some of the best albums ever. Revolver narrowly edges out Sgt. Pepper and Abbey Road for #1 spot. Early August 1966 saw the release of the Beatles' 7th studio album. Following the release of Rubber Soul, the band embarked on what would be their final UK concert tour, and after a brief hiatus, they returned to Abbey Road to record nonstop for 3 months. Revolver was ranked the 3rd greatest album of all time by Rolling Stone in 2004, behind Sgt. Pepper and Pet Sounds. Revolver builds on Rubber Soul's artistic leap, with early psychedelic experiments, Tomorrow Never Knows, and more complex and mature material than the band had previously attempted. All of this sets the stage for Sgt. Pepper, but many Beatles fans believe that Revolver has the edge song for song. Having more time in the studio had resulted in more inventiveness and experimentation, as well as John and Paul being in excellent writing form. 3 of George's tunes were included for the first time on a Beatles album. Before the album's release, the band embarked on a brief tour of Western Germany before going to Japan, the Philippines, and eventually to the United States for their final performances, the last of which took place on August 29, 1966 at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. The album debuted at #1 in the United Kingdom and spent 7 weeks there, out of a total of 34 weeks on the chart. Revolver remained at the top for the final 6 weeks of its 77-week chart run. #2 album is Abbey Road. The Beatles' final album, Abbey Road, was released after Let It Be. It's unmistakable evidence that the band disbanded at the pinnacle of their power. Abbey Road was recorded in the summer of 1969 following the arduous Let It Be sessions, and the Beatles knew it would be their final album, so they put their differences aside to create a masterpiece. The album's strongest side, though, is a 16-minute symphony of tunes that flow together seamlessly. What would have happened if they had stayed together for a couple of more albums? #3 album is The Beatles. The Beatles' 9th studio album and only double album, The Beatles, was released on November 22, 1968, and is also known as the White Album. Its plain white sleeve has no images or writing other than the band's name embossed on it, which was meant to be a stark contrast to the band's previous LP, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which had a vibrant cover artwork. The Beatles are known for their disjointed style and wide range of genres, which include folk, British blues, ska, music hall, and avant-garde. It has since been hailed as a postmodern masterpiece and one of the finest albums of all time by certain critics. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is #4. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, released in 1967, defies description. Aside from the fact that it was the last time the Beatles actually collaborated as a group, it also established the LP as an art form, influencing a slew of subsequent rock bands. In 2000, Ringo stated that Sgt. Pepper was their biggest achievement. No single was taken from the album for the 4th time in the UK, and the same was true in the US. The record was also not banded, encouraging listeners to listen to it from beginning to end, pausing only to change the discovery. Not only was the music unique, vibrant and colourful, but the way it was delivered was as well. The boys in their Pepper uniforms were surrounded by photographs of people they either admired or were interested in on the glossy double wallet, while the lyrics to all the songs were on the reverse of the sleeve. Other surprises were hidden within each side of the wallet, including a card with varied cutouts and, at least on the first pressings, a psychedelic design on the paper inside the sleeve. The album debuted at #1 in the United Kingdom, where it spent a total of 27 weeks at the top during a 148-week chart run between June 1967 and February 1968. The album was released in the United States in the same manner as it was in the United Kingdom, almost. The American edition omitted the high-pitched tone and distorted words included in the UK run-out groove. During its initial 88-week chart run, the album spent 15 weeks at the top of the US Top 200 albums. Rubber Soul is #5. Rubber Soul was the first time the Beatles recorded an album fully at once, rather than editing tracks during breaks in their hectic schedule. With songs like In My Life, Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown, and You Won't See Me, the 1965 album displays a major leap in sophistication. It was their most experimental music yet, but also their warmest, friendliest, and most emotionally direct. Rubber Soul sliced the story of pop music in half as soon as it was released in December 1965. We're all living in the future that this album created. Every pop musician since then has wanted to create Rubber Soul. Magical Mystery Tour is #6. Has there ever been a soundtrack that outperformed the film by such a large margin? While the 1967 television movie is now forgotten, the accompanying album contains many Beatle classics such as The Fall on the Hill, I Am the Walrus, and Hello Goodbye. The year leading up to the publication of the Magical Mystery Tour album in November 1967 was tumultuous for the Beatles, who were working on tracks for it almost simultaneously with those for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and the Yellow Submarine soundtrack. With travelling no longer an option, they were able to spend more time in the studio fine-tuning their songs. The same band that had recorded its debut album in a single day was now spending weeks tweaking with individual takes. Number 7 is Help. Help. Although the film is just marginally better than Magical Mystery Tour, the soundtrack is another gem. By this time, Lennon and McCartney had disbanded as a writing duo. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away foreshadows Lennon's later work, while Yesterday demonstrates McCartney's quickly improving ballad writing skills. The two singles released before and alongside the album, unlike A Hard Day's Night, contain exclusive B-sides. Help also marked George Harrison's comeback as a songwriter. The album debuted at number 1 in the UK charts and remained there for 9 of the record's 37 weeks in the top 20. Things were different in the United States once again. A second soundtrack CD was issued, which included all of the songs from the UK's album's first side, as well as 6 instrumental pieces composed by Ken Thorne. It resulted in yet another US number 1 album, this time for 9 weeks during a 42-week chart run. Number 8 is Let It Be. Let It Be is the British rock band The Beatles' 12th and final studio album. It was released in conjunction with the motion picture of the same name on May 8, 1970, almost a month after the group's breakup. The Beatles sought to reunite as a songwriting unit with Let It Be, but the endeavour ended up tearing them apart more than ever. They cancelled the sessions and eventually gave the tapes to producer Phil Spector, who used them to put together an album that was released in May 1970. The tough birth, on the other hand, is barely visible in the result. Get Back, Let It Be, I've Got a Feeling, and Across the Universe demonstrate that the Beatles could still crank out songs despite adversity. The album topped record charts in many countries, including the United States and the United Kingdom, similar to the band's previous releases. However, the critical reception was mixed, and Let It Be became one of the most divisive rock albums of all time. A Hard Day's Night is the 9th album on our list. The Beatles' third album in less than 18 months, released on the 10th of July 1964, was timed to coincide with the release of their first film. 7 of the album's 13 tracks were included in the film's soundtrack. Can't Buy Me Love, You Can't Do That, which was released on March 20th, was the only single released ahead of the album. It was also noteworthy as, for the first time on a Beatles album, all of the titles were written by John and Paul. This is the first Beatles album to feature solely original material. John Lennon and Paul McCartney had progressed to the point where they didn't need to rely on covers anymore. One of the most iconic opening chords in rock history opens the title tune of the 1964 album, while And I Love Her and Can't Buy Me Love are among the Beatles' best songs. And I Love Her and Can't Buy Me Love are among their best. Finally, with the Beatles album is number 10. Many people who lived through it remember November 22, 1963 as the day President John F. Kennedy was slain in Dallas, Texas. The Beatles' second album, Abbey Road, had been released earlier that day by Parlophone. The Beatles picked up where Please Me left off with The Beatles, combining more Lennon-McCartney originals with additional highlights from their stage show. It also included George Harrison, their 20-year-old lead guitarist, making his songwriting debut. The Beatles had to record their second album in between other engagements because they had completed the majority of their debut album in one day. Concert tours, radio and television appearances, including the famous Sunday night at the London Palladium, and their first overseas tour to Sweden was among the highlights of their career. The name Beatlemania was coined about this time, and it was on full display when they performed in front of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and Princess Margaret at the Royal Variety performance that year. They also had to write, record, and market 3 new 45s, all of which charted at number 1 in the United Kingdom. Subscribe to the Yellow Submarine right away for more insightful and interesting content from us. And don't forget to like this video and turn on the notify feature. That's it for today, guys, and thank you for watching.